is an exaggerated image. You know what? You asked me 10 years ago, I would have said no to AI, no to Photoshop, but I'm actually coming around. I really started having fun with it. And like I said, I mean, adding elements. I try to always use my real photography in the stuff that I'm doing with Photoshop and AI, but sometimes I'll create an image just strictly out of that. It just helps me make everything larger to life. I can do it without, sacrificing a shot or sacrificing the idea per se.
Hey everyone, I'm Matt Payne, and this is episode 445 of F-Stop, Collaborate, and Listen, a podcast that goes far beyond camera gear with candid, in-depth conversations exploring creativity, motivation, inspiration, and the craft of photography. Each week, I sit down with professional photographers, industry insiders, and passionate creatives to dig into the why behind the work, from business and marketing to mindset and artistic growth. With a particular focus on landscape, nature, and wildlife photography, we also explore hot topics shaping the photo industry today. This week's episode is a little different because it's as much about seeing the work as it is about talking about it. My guests are Chris Fulcher and Savannah Woods, a creative couple whose photography blends art, travel, and storytelling into bold, cinematic imagery. In this conversation, we screen share a lot of their photographs and dig into the stories, challenges, and creative decisions behind them. We talk about the dynamics of creating together as a couple, how they navigate creative conflict, what it's like to produce art in harsh environments, and their evolution from hands-on image makers to creative directors running a full media agency. Okay, here's my conversation with Chris Fulcher and Savannah Woods. All right, Chris Fulcher and Savannah Woods, it's great to have you on the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good. This is super interesting because you guys are on the same screen, same microphone. I don't actually think I've ever done that before.
This is exciting. We've been, listening to the podcast for a while now, and now we're just really excited to make this happen and be on with you.
Yeah, this is going to be super fun. You guys have some really interesting, unique photography that I think is going to be really fun to talk about today. And before we dive into all that, why don't you guys tell us a little bit about yourselves?
So I'm Chris, obviously, and this is Savannah. And we started a media agency, I would say about 6 years ago now. Mm-hmm. Coming from my background, I've been doing photography about 15 years. And then Savannah teamed up with me about 6 years ago.
Yeah, when we started the company.
Yeah.
And we've been working together and creating together ever since.
Yeah. So
nice. Where are you guys from? Where do you live now? That kind of thing.
We're from Las Vegas, but we're originally from Connecticut, and we're actually in Connecticut right now. So we have a studio here in Connecticut, so we're constantly going back and forth. But we're usually on the road about 8 to 10 months a year. So as much as I say we live in Vegas, we're not in Vegas as much, but that is our home base right now.
Yeah.
Nice.
I think altogether we've probably lived from the time that we've actually spent in Vegas, only like a year and a half.
Yeah, we've been in Vegas about coming on 4 years, I think, right now, right?
Yes.
And then we were in Los Angeles before then.
Nice. And what does it look like to be on the road? I mean, are you like living in hotels? Are you van lifing? Like, what does that look like?
It depends. So sometimes we rent out Airbnbs, or sometimes we crash with friends, family. We haven't done the van life yet, but we've always talked about it, but mostly hotels and, Airbnbs and things like that.
Yeah, the only reason why we haven't done the van life really is because most of our travels takes us overseas. So we work with a lot of luxury hotels, and that was the company that we started 6 years ago. Was in luxury travel spaces, so working for travel tourism boards, hotels. So a lot of our work takes us to Asia and Europe and South America for that. So that's it was hard to kind of have a van and travel that, right? For our line of work.
Totally. So let's talk about photography. So how did each of you even get into photography to begin with?
I'll let you go ahead for that.
So when I first started joining up with Chris, I started modeling for him for a lot of our photos and portraiture. And then I became more interested in the creative aspect of photography, and I wanted to be more behind the camera than in front of the camera. So he actually was teaching me how to take my own photos, and then we just been going ever since. And I've been stepping away from in front of the camera and focusing more on the behind aspects.
Yeah, we so 6 years ago when we met, when we got together, we started collaborating on projects, and like Savannah said, she started modeling. So I was diving a little bit into the hotel stuff, but it wasn't full on just yet. Miss Savannah was coming on trips with me and being in the photographs for the hotels and the travel campaigns that we were doing. Yeah, I mean, within a year, it just started really taking off for us. And then, we started directing a lot of campaigns. So Savannah started helping behind the scenes more. So Savannah was interested in, just helping out with the pitch decks and the photography and the videography. And one thing led to another, and you still model here and there, but we're mostly behind the camera. I mean, we're not even sometimes touching the camera at all, right? We're having a team of guys come out with us and completely shooting it, and we're the ones putting the pieces together for the hotel or the other stuff that we do. But for me, before all that, it all started from paintball. Actually, I used to photograph paintball professionally. And I worked for a magazine called Chrono 300 that I don't think is around anymore. But when I was 14 years old, I used to play paintball, and the sport got too expensive. So then I turned into my father. I remember I still wanted to be part of the sport because paintball used to be big. I don't know if you remember that, but 15 years ago, paintball was a big deal. They had World Cup for paintball and Disney, and it was a big thing.
Yeah.
So anyways, I wanted to be part of the sport because it got too expensive. Obviously, I didn't have a job, so my parents were footing the bill for me to, paint in general was expensive. So I borrowed my father's camera, and it was like, it was Olympia. I think it was an Olympia 3 megapixel like point and shoot, right? That's what I was using on the field, like because I still want to be a part of it, and my parents were like basically like, we just can't afford it, and so then I would go to the field, and then I started charging guys on the field money to photograph their teams, right? Or I would photograph the teams, come to them, and I'm like, hey, look, I got these images for you. And I think that all started because I was using the money to play still, but at the same time, I think somebody gave me a tip, and I was like, gave me like $20, and they're like, thanks, dude, for taking these photos. And I was like, man, I can make money from this. This is cool, right? And then one thing led to another, and I did it for a few years, and then I finally got like a Nikon D80 and the D60, maybe, I forget. I mean, this is 2008 or 2009.
Yeah, right.
Earlier, my parents got me, a nicer camera with a zoom lens, and
They saw that you were good.
yeah, I guess, I had it. I guess I didn't see it at the time, but then one of the biggest paintball magazines in, I would say, the world at the time hired me and they gave me a few test runs for free. They were like, hey, look, if you can travel. So my parents were actually driving me around the country. So they flew, we drove up to Maine, and then they flew me down to Florida. My parents were very big supporters of me getting into this field, so I got to give them a lot of credit. But yeah, the one thing led to another. I started doing that for a long time, and then I fell into the music industry. Eventually the sport started dying, and then one thing led to another through that, and I met people in the music industry through paintball. And then I started going on, I don't know if you remember Warped Tour.
Oh yeah, totally. I went to, I think, 2 of them actually in Denver.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So it was like, so I met somebody that was that was a neighbor of mine in Connecticut, but I didn't know him earlier, but I met him right after the paintball thing died, and I stopped doing photography for a year, right? And I was like, I don't know what to do. So I met this kid, and his name is Lars. He's actually one of my best friends to this date. He was in a band on Warped Tour, and he invited me to come for a few years and tour with him as a photographer. And I did Warped Tour from when I was 16 to 18 or 19, about 2 or 3 years of Warped Tour.
Wow.
Through the summer, we're living on, a bus through the summer, bunch of dirty dudes, just, all bunking together. I mean, it was rough. Warped Tour, like touring Warped Tour was rough. But
I
yeah,
bet.
that's how I fell into the music photography, and that kind of inspired everything else, right? I mean that's the there's a lot of the origin story, but that's kind of the that's the beginning steps of what was to come.
No, that's awesome. And when you originally reached out to me, I was really drawn by the fact that you have a lot of unique and interesting visuals in terms of like you're working with brands, you're working with hotels. You'd mentioned you're doing luxury hotels type of stuff, and it's all super interesting and unique. And maybe for people who are just listening, and maybe this is a good time for me to say also, if you're just listening, I do highly encourage people to check out the YouTube version of this episode because we are going to be sharing a lot of you guys' awesome photography work. But why don't you tell us, like, describe what your photography looks like? Like, what kind of work are you creating, and like how do you would best describe that to someone who's never seen it before?
It's very exaggerated portraiture. We work with a lot of lights, very colorful. We set things on fire for a lot of our editorial photography. And then we have that aspect. And then we also have the hotel aspect, which is very much more clean cut, I
Yeah,
guess you could say.
pristine. Yeah, it's a whole different beast, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm crazy, man. I mean, before I met Savannah and when I was getting into music photography, that was my style. I loved exaggerated images, but in portraiture. So, a big way of how we shoot, which kind of separates us from everybody else, is even headshots, right? I mean, I shoot at a really, really high f-stop. I mean, we shoot at like f16 to f22 most days, and we like to show the whole scene instead of super bokeh and in depth of field and really blurred out. I mean, we have shots like that, and we obviously can do it, but yeah, we like to just show a whole scene out of it, and that kind of came hand in hand with the whole like album music photography, because that's a big part of what we do is album covers and editorial campaigns for musicians specifically. So a lot of that creative work that you've seen and that you sent me, that's all that, right? So
We like to
Yeah,
almost tell
yeah.
a story with our photography.
right, that's it. I just felt like it was more than just a headshot. I mean, we wanted a whole storyline, just in one image, right? And leave it up to the audience to decide what that photo made them feel. So yeah, that's the style that we went for.
Yeah, nice. And I can't help but wonder and or notice that your time spent in the music industry with, big light shows and smoke and all that crazy stuff that happens at concerts, I bet that's kind of rubbed off on you and influenced your photography journey a little bit as well.
For sure, 100%. Yeah, you know what? I've never thought about it that way, but I bet you it did. It's just, yeah. I mean, I loved fire, and there was a lot of pyro at shows, right? And I've always been a pyro at heart. That's it's funny if you look at a majority of my photography, I always have a lot of fire in my stuff. I actually had a fire. My father built a fire table, like one of those. We made it at Home Depot, right? And I helped build it with him. But that was a staple for me in Connecticut. Is I was known as like the fire table photographer, because even if you came for a whole different shoot, everybody wanted a photo in front of this fire table, because that's what made it a Chris Fulcher shoot in a sense. Obviously a lot more than that, but it was just once you saw the fire table, there's nobody else really in the country that I ever saw that, everybody knew it's like you shot with Chris if you just got that one fire table photo, no matter what. And that was cool. That was super natural. It was never planned, right? I love the fire in the photos.
Everything's on fire.
Everything's on fire. So yeah, it was just, and then we took it a next step and we started breaking glass, just anything I could do to just make a chaotic scene in the imagery, right? So smoke, right? All that. So
Right. And for people who've never heard of fire table, like how would you briefly describe what a fire table is?
it's a I mean, Savvy, you help me out a little bit with the fire table.
So it was just like it basically just a fire pit, just in a table, and he created this beautiful marble countertop with
Right.
glass rocks in the middle, and
Okay, so like natural gas
yeah,
and
You can
exactly.
see it at restaurants, like a lot
right.
of
Yeah, yeah.
restaurants on the West Coast have it. So it's that, and that's actually how he got inspired. I think he went to Las Vegas or California and saw one and figured out if you could build it. Really dangerous to build, by the way. I mean, you hook well, depending, right? With him and me, it was our first time, so it was like we just hooked a propane tank up to the table, but we got crazy with it because propane tanks have a lock on it, but we were able to, so you can't like really, at least for the fire table there was like some type of locker, remember, and you couldn't get it too high up, the flames coming out, but we were able to shimmy that, and able at one point we could get the flames up to like 5 feet tall. It would drain the propane tank within 5 minutes, but
Your poor mother.
oh man, I mean, luckily, yeah, fortunately enough, nothing bad happened with that. But that kind of, yeah, I was able to play with light. That's actually how it kind of started into me playing with light, was fire. How it hit, skin, and obviously the taller it got, the more I wouldn't get, raccoon eyes, right? Because that was the thing. If you had the fire too small, you would have to figure out a top light for having raccoon eyes. So then I would try to shoot through the fire when I would make it 5 feet tall, because it would light up my subject beautifully, right? I would have like as long as I desaturated the oranges, it looked great.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense, man. All right, so before we jump into looking at some of your work, I did want to kind of ask you guys a little bit about kind of your co-journey here that you've got going on here. I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about what are some of the advantages of being in a creative partnership with your life partner.
I think it just gives you a greater appreciation for your partner. I mean, we're working together constantly. We see the amount of work that each of us puts into our projects. And so we just always appreciate each other for what we do and how hard each of us works together, and gives us a little bit more understanding sometimes when I get stressed out or when Chris gets stressed out, and we, are there to support each other throughout all of it.
So a big thing was, and we can dive into this later, but was the balance of having a relationship and having a work relationship.
Yeah.
But you can see certain things from the work relationship that we can use in our personal relationship. Was like Savannah said, I mean, if I, she understands when I'm frustrated or getting stressed out. And I really think us diving into this grew our relationships so strong. In that sense, right? We're around each other 24/7 for the most part. We work together, we live together, we travel together. I mean, we're around each other a lot, and that's tough in a relationship in general. We actually met right before COVID, a year before COVID, and I think COVID was how we could tell we could be compatible together, because
Yeah, it's a good test.
yeah, I mean,
exactly.
we stuck together that whole year. She basically, we weren't working, so Savannah, I was in Connecticut on a little hiatus, and Savannah, came over to my house, and we just hung out for a year. Not doing much but drinking wine and watching movies, but after a year, we're like, yeah, this doesn't suck. Like we haven't killed each other yet, right?
Yeah.
That was the biggest thing. We haven't killed each other, and that was big for us. Like I said, and then it was like, okay, like that's actually when we first started talking about getting into this business, and how Savannah felt, because Savannah was always interested in the creative aspect of this business. Not to speak for you, but
No, yeah.
so that was it. Really made us strong.
Awesome. And when it comes to collaborating together on a shoot, like how do you guys decide who's leading it, or do you like fully co-direct, or how does that work? Like how do you incorporate both of your visions into the project?
I would say we co-direct a lot of it. I have my creative input, Chris has his creative input, and sometimes we need to bounce ideas off of each other as far as what will work technically, and the reasoning behind why we want to take a photo a certain way.
Yeah, Savannah's very ABCD, so Savannah is able to articulate and especially with pitch decks and everything like that. I'm not. I think that's probably my weaker point is I'm very like in person, like I see it. And Savannah's able to have those ideas and kind of have it make sense on paper for our clients before, showing up.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys complement each other well in terms of like you got this weakness and you've got this weakness, but together we can handle it, no big deal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's ideal. Well, man, I'm excited to go through some of your photographs and talk about some of the stories behind some of these. So I wanted to first just talk about this one for people who are just listening. It's a photograph, it looks like from like a restaurant patio or a hotel patio with a little bit of a natural propane fire thing. And then there's this crazy illuminated like field of flowers in the background with a really awesome sunset. Tell us about this image and how you created it.
This is really special. This is actually one of our most recent. It's special because I proposed to Savannah a month ago at this spot. So this is it's called Sensorio Field of Lights, and it's in Paso Robles, California. Little background about Paso. Paso is actually one of our first cities that we started doing hotel photography and travel photography. We worked for a few hotels there. It's a really special place for us to go, and that's why I chose to do the proposal at this in this town, right? We actually have never been here, so that was the thing too. Is I wanted to do something that was, that was special and unique, but still in a familiar city that held a lot of memories for us. But the cool part about this is, so there's a designer. His name's Bruno Moreno, or Bruce Moreno. So he's a famous artist that creates physical light sculptures around the world, and he has some stuff down in Pawleys Island, South Carolina, where my parents are. So I knew about this guy for a little bit, and he's had this light exhibit, and it is this, this photo. I was really like, this is one of my favorite photos, but just seeing it in person is like insane, dude. It is.
So all the lights are individual stalks with little bulbs on them. And as you're walking through the exhibit, they're playing music and the light changes. So it's a whole atmospheric exhibit as well. But just this was our view, and it was, absolutely stunning. It was near sunset and
this
everything.
is where I did the proposal, actually, because it's a huge place. You can walk around for half a day there. But yeah, this is a really special place for us, especially because of that, right? So
yeah, that's awesome. Actually, I when you sent these over to me, I didn't realize that this was you guys. I was like, oh, this is cool. It's like someone hired you guys to do their engagement photos, but it's actually you guys.
No, that was us. Yeah, that's
so he tricked me, and I thought we were working for the company Sensorio when we went there, and they wanted us to take photos, but he tricked me and he said, oh, they want a few couples photos in this location, showcasing their exhibits. And I'm like, okay, understood. So we were standing there and doing the typical couple poses, in front of the lights and everything. And he had me turn around, look out over into the horizon, and I turned back around and there he was.
Yeah, I had Savannah model for this project, and it was just kind of like, it was hard because we travel so much. So it's like Savannah, it's like anytime I was like, she's gonna know something's gonna come up because she's part of the company. I can't just surprise her with a Greece, with a trip to Greece or something like that, because
right.
About every project we have. So this is something that I was like, in last minute projects are more realistic than the overseas. So I was able to get away with, hey, Sav, we have this project in Paso. One of our dear friends lives out there, so he was able to set it up and help us with that. But the real quick backstory why I chose this place, not only because it was in Paso, but our first trip ever to know even if we're compatible together was when we first started dating before COVID. Savannah came up with this idea of like, how about we travel somewhere together to see if we're good on the road together, right? Because I was on the road already for a long time before I met her, and we were supposed to go to California, but then the flights were a little bit more expensive, and they had this Black Friday sale to Japan, and it was cheaper than going to California from Connecticut. And I was like, okay, like let's try Tokyo. You know, I've been there before. I lived there for 6 months one time back in 2011, so I was familiar with it. Savannah always wanted to go. And then we actually booked a job with this hotel called Park Hyatt in Tokyo, and that was actually one of our first hotels ever that we ever worked with, right?
Yeah. So we also went to this light exhibit.
That's yeah.
One of the first trips we took, we went to this beautiful light exhibit called Dream Labs.
Team Labs.
Team Labs.
Team
Tokyo.
Labs Borderless is the it was planets and borderless. There's two different, but it's kind of like this. What you're seeing right now, it's all immersive, interactive art galleries. And yeah, sorry to cut you off, but
No, but
that's why I chose this place, because that was our first our first trip together. It was like the first month we started dating. Everybody thought we were crazy that we were traveling, across the world on our first date, really. But that was our first. That art exhibit was very special to us, because that was our first time that we started falling in love together. And that's why I was like, this is perfect, because it was sort of on brand with that art exhibit in Tokyo.
Awesome. All right. Well, how about tell me about this particular image. What's the story behind this, and how did you execute it? I was really drawn to this particular one.
Thanks. So we now use Photoshop and CGI, and we now incorporate, but when I first started, I didn't use any Photoshop or anything for a long time. And this is actually a recent image that we took about a few weeks ago, right? But a lot of our style photography is light play. Like I said, it kind of all started from the fire. But this is actually used with one of those glow stick wands. I don't know if you ever seen.
Oh yeah, sure.
Like I don't know if they're made for little kids, but you see them at festivals and raves, and I don't know what they're for, but they're
just party, I guess.
Yeah, and I think I like to buy weird stuff online that lights up, like kids' toys and just things that I'm like, this might make a cool image if I use it, however which way. So I put it I put the camera on a tripod, and I did probably let's say about a 3 seconds timer, 2 second timer, and we waved the wands up and down her face and chest, and we're able to create this ethereal image, right? And I've done this shot before one other time. I think this was the second time we've done it. But every time we've done it, it always created like a unique image out of it, and I love doing stuff like that personally.
So it's also very interesting, like just using the lights in general, because you're basically painting, and so depending on like if I did it in front of somebody's face or if I did it behind their face, it's going to create a completely different image. So a lot of it was just trial and error too, of just trying to figure out what's going to look best in camera. So we had to do it 20, 30 times.
Yeah, there's no rhyme or reason to it. I mean, the only thing that I try to make sure is I'll add another light to it. So we added like a one of those cheap $10 Amazon video lights to bounce off a wall. And really a lot of our lighting nowadays, I mean, back in the day, I was using like alien bees, the generator, the vagabonds, right? It was really very, light meters, everything. Now, man, I'm like, I'll just use anything, I'll use lamps to light something up. A big thing is I just think that, you can get creative photography without using expensive lighting equipment. Expensive equipment in general, but talking more about lighting, I mean, some of our best images are with stuff that costs us under $5, under $10, right? And this is a prime example of something that those wands probably cost 75 cents, and we bought 10 of them. Even less, right? And so I love doing stuff like this. This is fun for me,
Yeah, it's awesome. I don't know. Are you familiar with Eric Paré and his girlfriend Kim? They use like a lot of light tubes and little she models for him, and then it's kind of the same idea, like a lot of long exposures, like 5 to 10 seconds, and then he uses these light wands to kind of like paint around her while she's doing different poses and stuff, like
Yeah.
in really cool locations and stuff
I
like
have
that.
seen his work. His work's insane. Yeah, that's I also seen this guy that actually does light painting in fields, and he makes like skeletons and dinosaurs, and he makes full sets.
Yes.
He went viral for it. I forget his name. But he went super viral a few years ago for it. And that's a whole nother, because you can't see what you're painting. And he's actually making full images out of it. He makes cars. Like, it is such a craft to
Yeah.
do that, right? It's
Totally.
it's really cool,
Yeah,
fun.
major props to people who can do that.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah. All right. Let me pull up another one. So the next one I wanted to ask you about, the way I would describe this is it's like almost like set in a slot canyon with this light beam coming down, and then there's this human figure draped with a white cloth that's like floating up into the sky. It's quite surreal. So tell us about this one.
Yeah, so a lot of like this style of photography is so we're using Blender, AI, Photoshop, and also portions of real photography. This one actually has no real photography to it, but there's certain elements that I was able to do. Like I said, I mean, it really comes down to light play. So this was for a project for a musician that we worked on, and I'm incorporating all those programs, like I said, Blender, Photoshop, and AI, and kind of just doing, kind of like a puzzle piece. I'm like adding a corner here, adding a corner there, and using elements. That image took probably, it's not a quick process. It's not like just typing in AI and being like, do this. It's really
Right.
taking piece. It's funny because I'll post it, and I'll say what it is, right? I mean, some people really think it's real photography, and I want to make sure that people know the difference between, what's photoshopped and what's, AI'd and Blender and all that. But yeah, we're just using certain sections to create that. So I was able to create the light beam first, then at the canyon, and then at the woman, and have her elevated with the cloth, right? But yeah, that's something like that. We're starting to use a lot, right? I'm really actually having a lot of fun with it, because I started off I was the no Photoshop guy. A lot of the photos on my website, under that editorial, is very minimal Photoshop. I think there's a little bit more on there now, but I was known as using no Photoshop, no CGI, no out of camera. But now I don't know. I kind of changed directions, and I was able to kind of take the next step and do stuff that I wasn't able to physically make, through my camera, right?
Yeah. I mean, this would be really difficult to pull off with
Right. And honestly, that's what pushed me as a kid, man. I mean, I would see images that were photoshopped, and I was like, I gotta create that, right? But it would take 10 days of prep, and it would never be exactly what I pictured, because it's all like something like this, right? This would be a really hard image, like you said, to it's doable, but that's a tough, that's a long process for that. So
Yeah. You mentioned that this is kind of like a album cover for a band, and I'm curious, maybe Savannah, you could tell us a little bit about like, how do you bridge, like someone comes to you and they're like, we want an album cover. Like, how do you get from them saying we want an album cover to this end result? Like, what does that look like for you guys?
It's a lot of conversation. We go back and forth based on their interests, people that they idolize, things like that, their kind of overall aesthetic. We ask them what their favorite color is, what kind of image they picture for themselves. And then we build off of that. So this was for a client that wanted more like earthy red orange tones, and he wanted this kind of like spiritual aspect to it as well. So we just go back and forth. We build with him as well, and we create some images for him, or a lot of it is scrolling through the internet, finding image references as well, and like kind of building that brand and building that mood board. And then we can start working on our own photography. We say, okay, this is what we're going to try to do, and this is how we're going to piece it together, and how it all makes sense.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Let's I want to talk about another one. So tell me about this one. So for people listening, it's a little bit hard to describe, right? You've got this model who's kind of posing, looking up into the air, but then she's like wrapped in this kind of really cool tree kind of thing, and it's got like a really just clean, simple, minimalistic background, but a very interesting image nonetheless. So tell us about this one.
So this is actually a real person. That this is, you know, the elements that we're adding real photography into, you know, the CGI and the blender, in AI, right? So this is actually something that I felt like we could have pulled off in person. Again, this would have been a tough thing, but we do have set designers and stuff. This is yeah, this is actually like when I first started getting into more of the Photoshop, you know, and using AI elements to help us, you know,
So we
design
had some of the branches were original there. She came in with these tree branches, and she said ultimately she's like, I want this to be like coming out of my body or like coming through my body. And we're like, okay. So we had her hold some, like propped them up against her body, and then she posed, and then the rest we just kind of extended afterwards.
right, we expanded to make it look
Larger than life.
right.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense, and it's funny because people listening to the podcast, like it's funny you mentioned like you're known as the no Photoshop guy, because I have this whole thing about me like in terms of natural nature and like not a lot of manipulation. But I think when it comes to commercial work and like more kind of like editorial work in this particular regard, I think sky's the limit. Like do whatever you want. Like I don't think anyone looking at this would like expect that to be like, oh, she really had that tree growing around her. Okay.
Right,
You
right.
know what I mean?
Yeah, and honestly, like the travel photography, we don't Photoshop stuff besides like editing people out. Like, yeah, obviously we can't really manipulate the hotels, and you know we have to shoot it, and that's very specific, right? Waking up at certain times, we plan months in advance for, like you said, the editorial style of our work. We're able to exaggerate. And not only is it an exaggerated image, but it's now we're using. I've never, you know what, you asked me 10 years ago, I would have said no to AI, no to Photoshop. I was, you know, but I'm actually coming around. I really started having fun with it, and like I said, I mean, adding elements. I try to always use my real photography in the stuff that I'm doing with Photoshop and AI, but sometimes I'll create an image just strictly out of that, like that last one that we talked about, right? But yeah, I think you know, I'm coming around more to it, that I like to use. It just helps me make everything, you know, like Savannah said, larger to life. I can do it without, you know, sacrificing a shot or sacrificing the idea per se, right? So
Yeah, totally. All right, let's talk about this one. So it's very interesting. It's basically a woman standing in the middle of a field and she's on fire with a really cool sunset behind her, and there's definitely some film grain going on here, which is kind of an interesting effect as well. So tell us about this one.
yeah, so and again, this is obviously it wasn't real fire. We did talk about the image is real with her standing in the field, but we obviously didn't have the tools or the techniques. We actually talked about doing real fire, but the thing with real fire is, so they make like a gel that you can put on skin that helps protect somebody from real fire. But it was one of those things where it just wasn't, it didn't feel, it felt like that was going to sacrifice the shot that we wanted to. The way the fire glows off the skin, you can see the gel. I wasn't too sure if I could get rid of it with Photoshop. So with an image like this, we actually have to light, you know, we have to light everything with how we're doing. So for her, we have to light like it's real fire around her. So we use small little dinky lights, you know, like I said, those $10 Amazon lights, which are, you know, I love, man. You know, to light real fire around her, and then I take those out, and then I put, you know, I'll Photoshop real fire on her dress, and that's how we got this image.
And what was the kind of reason for creating the images to begin with?
This was just for a client that wanted you know, that just wanted some interesting photos to her portfolio. Some clients that we have, there's no specific, you know, reason to have the images for themselves besides It's very rare, but we do have those, right? I mean, we do have them once in a while. They're more
They
they're
give us a lot of creative freedom.
right. They just like our work, and literally they'll just show, and those are sometimes the best shoots. They'll show up and they'll be like, I don't care what you do, just make it look cool.
Right.
We're getting so busy with like commercial projects and like big projects, but that's actually why we keep coming back to Connecticut is most of those clients are in Connecticut. They're honestly just regular people with 9 to 5s, and they save their money up a few times a year, and they're just like, hey, look, like I just want cool images to show my friends and family and post on Facebook and Instagram, right?
Well, they model and they're musicians and they have other like creative outlets, but
Right.
yeah, it's very much a collaborative effort whenever we work
Some of
with
them
people
don't
out
have
here.
creative outlets, honestly. Some
is
people
true.
are just they're not,
Yeah.
they just want cool
But it's
images.
still a fun creative outlet, and it brings the passion back into the photography as well when we get to work with people that actually enjoy the creative process as well, and they're not just looking for something very specific.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
With
Go ahead.
fire, like have you photographed fire?
Man,
I didn't
not
know
a
if there was like a
ton. Like,
pyro in you or if it,
I am kind of like you. I do love fire. I think the closest I've come to doing anything with fire is like I've incorporated it into some of my landscape photographs. Like if I have a campfire going
Cool.
and like there's a Milky Way or something like that, I'll try to incorporate. Like I have a cool photo I captured in 2020 during COVID where my dad and my son and I went on a kind of guys only camping trip up in the mountains, and we had a cool campfire, and I set up the shot so that we're kind of standing behind the fire and we're all glowing, and then you've got the night sky behind us. So I've done stuff like that, but man, I don't know, like fire, I have a pretty healthy respect for it, even though I absolutely love playing with it too. So I don't know.
So that's the thing. Like, so this image, right? Like 10 years ago, maybe even less. I would have actually lit the dress on fire if I could have and done the whole gel thing. And we've had some scary incidents where even
Yeah.
with fire, with smoke,
Yeah.
the colored smoke. We've had we've had some people, even myself, have hurt myself. Nothing, knock on wood, like nothing terrible. But I did have a client one time that held the smoke grenade
On the wrong
wrong
side.
way.
Oops.
And-
She was supposed to pull it, and it actually gave her third-degree burns through her
Yeah,
hand.
it exploded in her hand.
And that was when I was this is about 6 years ago, right? That wasn't even that long ago, but stuff like that, it gets scary, right? We
Yeah.
always make sure we try to do everything ourselves, but for something like that, she needed to pull the smoke grenade herself. And we make sure we're very transparent with everybody if we do have to do something like that.
We try to make it as safe as possible for the client.
Right. The
Um,
client's everything, right?
The client is everything, but sometimes like images like this, sometimes they would want to be set on fire, and it's like, okay, like at what point can we make sure that this isn't like a safety hazard for us and for the client,
But also
Yeah, I'll
you're
turn
like
down-
in the
I-
middle, you're in the middle of like a giant field full of dead grass.
Well,
Right.
and I turn down shoots all the time. Like honestly, so when I posted this photo, I had almost 15 people within the same day message me and be like, I want to be lit on fire too. And I'm like, that's great, but let's talk about this, right? I mean, it's so that's why I said like the Photoshop just definitely makes it safer. But there's elements to it. Like I said, I like trying to do everything in person and behind the camera still to this day. But obviously if I'm able to Photoshop it and I feel comfortable making it look as real as possible, sometimes we'll take that step. So
Yeah, I was curious to ask you one thing that always runs through my head when I see stuff like this after I'm like, holy cow, that's so cool, is then I start to think about, okay, there's probably like 100,000 people that have seen this photo. They're like, I'm going to go recreate that too. And then they don't realize that it's Photoshop. And then they actually do some damage. Like I remember, must have been, gosh, what was that, 2019 or whatever? They had that huge forest fire in the Columbia River Gorge near Portland where someone was doing, I think it was from spinning wool, basically burned up the entire Columbia River Gorge because of it. And and it's, it's people wanting to recreate a photo or like they think it might look cool. And so, I mean, there's definitely like, I guess the point of my question is like, have you thought about like, or worried about like, am I going to encourage other people to do something that might be dangerous and or like unsafe or maybe not a great idea, something like that?
Yeah, we try to post as many disclaimers as possible. That's why, whenever we do post a photo that has, Photoshop elements to it, we'll actually talk about that and we'll say it. At the end of the day, there's only so much I can do.
Right.
It's people are gonna do what they're gonna do, and obviously we don't encourage anybody to, and I do get, yeah, I mean, amateur photographers all the time, like asking how I recreated something and
Hmm.
what are the appropriate steps to go through it. And I actually appreciate people like that instead of just going off on their own. When they just go off on their own, I mean, that's like I said, there's not much I can do with that except for putting a disclaimer. Um,
Right, right.
but yeah, I mean, usually half the time, if somebody reaches out to me and they're interested, like how to do it safely, and like I said, a lot of people thought my work was Photoshop beforehand. So but yeah, I always tell people like so for fire, we've worked with so much real fire that we actually bring a fire safety, like somebody that's registered under the state that you're in. So we just did a shoot with a fire dancer a few weeks ago, and in the middle of the desert, and we had to bring a fire safety coordinator with us that has blankets, the whole nine, to make sure that we're doing it appropriately and safely.
Hmm.
Nice. Well, you've got so many awesome images you sent over to me. There's a couple more I wanted to go through. This next one I wanted to ask you about for people who are listening. Basically, it's a picture of like an old kind of 4x3 television set with a built-in DVD player, and it's got the person on the TV set is breaking through the glass from the other side and has their hand coming through the TV, and everything's like super blue. Like, tell me about this one.
So this is all real besides the glass on the ground and on the TV. But I am a Savannah will tell you I'm crazy. I love Facebook Marketplace, man, and I'm always searching for fun stuff. And I saw somebody giving away for free on Facebook Marketplace in Vegas a gutted out TV. I mean, Sav, I mean, you should talk about how when I came through
Yeah.
the door, I think Sav almost killed me.
So
It's
he,
huge, this is a massive TV, dude.
because it's one of the old TVs, so it's one of the old big boxy TVs, and he bought it already gutted out, so we didn't have to do anything with that. But
It was free, I
he
think. They were just giving it away.
he comes through the door and he goes, "Don't be mad at me." And "Why?"
This is like a usual conversation in our home is
Yes.
I like to buy stuff like that, and my first thing is
Don't be
don't
mad
be
at me.
mad at me.
And then he brings in this empty TV, and I'm going, "Okay, cool. Where are we gonna put this?" But we found space, and it actually turned out really, really cool because we had to disassemble it a little bit more in order to get this photo. So we had to take the front of the TV off, which trying to figure out how to do that was interesting.
It was just big enough to fit somebody in, but it was very crunched. So
Yes.
right, we had to take the frame off from
Oh,
the
right.
from the
Got
back
it. Yeah.
box area, and then yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that's so. Anyways, that this shot was just one of our just luckily one of our clients that she just one of those people that she just wanted fun images. She's just somebody that hired us and just wanted fun and wanted there was no rhyme or reason to the images. It was just like kind of come up with whatever you think. I had this idea in my head for a long time of a woman or a man like coming out of a TV, and we took the frame off. We actually removed the back of the TV completely. We put her up against the wall, and then I wanted her to reach out towards my hand as a POV shot. And it just I love this image. This is like I said, this is something that we just did about 2 weeks ago
Mhm.
in Vegas. But I was really happy with the whole series that came
Yeah.
out of this.
How did you add the glass and get the lighting on the glass to look so realistic?
No, so the glass is all fake. So the glass is all Photoshop. So we just add little key elements to it. And then for the shine and shimmer off the glass, I was able to add in, so I think the glass we're able to kind of just paint like dodge a little bit. So a dodge an
Okay.
area, and then you just keep doing that over and over again, and then it's a lot of dodging and burning elements to it. But that's how I was able to do that to make it look more realistic. I was having an issue with this image with the glass looking too flat and it wasn't looking real. So I was like, okay, like we need to add that like the light is reflecting off of it, right? So
Gotcha. All right. Well, let me see here. I wanted to ask you about one more image. I wanted to ask you about this one here. It's this one definitely looks and feels a little bit more AI to me, but it's basically like a human form or a humanoid that's like covered in almost like a plasticky glass that's reflecting all these weird, interesting purple and yellow colors.
Yeah.
And then they have like flowers coming out of their head. So tell me about this one.
Yeah, so this is definitely, you were right. I mean, you're right on the money. This is more AI than anything else. It's still Blender, Photoshop, and AI elements added to it. There's no real photography to this image at all. But we were very inspired by a DJ called Anima. He went to the Las Vegas Sphere. I'm not sure if you've seen that, but they did a big DJ set for I don't know how long, a few months, right?
Yeah.
But all his visuals were robots just like this doing cool effects in the sphere. And it inspired me at first to create this, and then me and Savannah came up with a a pitch deck for a client that wanted something similar. He's a techno house techno DJ, something like that. And his whole thing was robots too. So we wanted to come up with something that was vibrant and still different. That's the thing too, is that we like to take pieces from other artists or other images that we can find and just kind of throw it all in one and create something out of ourselves, right? Some images are just straight from the top, like completely, like we don't have any inspiration behind them. But this image, yeah, was incorporating a bunch of different ideas that we had and kind of putting it into one.
Awesome. Well, we could probably do this all day long, but
Sure. Yeah.
for now, I wanted to get back into asking you guys a couple of more questions. So, kind of going back to the dynamic that you guys have as a couple, do you guys have any rituals or systems in place that help you maintain both your professional momentum and your personal connection?
We have boxing gloves.
Actually, she's not kidding. So we have sock and boppums. You remember sock and boppums?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, they're the blow up little kid boxing gloves. We say this jokingly, but
We don't actually use them.
we
but-
bought them though, and we're like, all right, every time we get frustrated, we'll just do a ring. We'll just do a round where we just kind of, we play with these blow up boxing gloves for fun. But no, we've never used those. But
No.
we actually do have them. Savannah bought them as a gag gift because we were agreeing on something, and Savannah's like, you know what? I'm gonna order this on Amazon. You'll see it next
We're
week.
just gonna duke it
And
out.
we're gonna so we actually just have them. But no, what would you say? I mean, we have a lot of regiments, I would think.
Yeah, so we always check in with each other before a project, and then we always check in with each other after a project, like whether it's a shoot or even just in general, like we're constantly checking in with each other, like especially talking work, so we also have to approach each other sometimes, and this helps for my brain mostly. But if Chris is coming to me and he goes, okay, I'm talking to you in a professional point, like a work point, keeping our relationship out of this. And then if he has certain, things to say to me, I do the same for him, kind of dividing that aspect of our relationship as well, like work versus personal.
There's a book. I don't remember the book, but there's a book all about that. And I had actually a tattoo artist tell me about this because he worked with his wife. But that was some of the best advice I ever got, was like, you need to separate both worlds. You can never bring in that personal side to the relationship side, unless obviously it made sense. But we have to separate both. So when we talk in a business standpoint, like, feelings could get hurt really easily if we disagree on something. We never want that to go into our personal relationship. And that's how I would think, a lot of, just couples in general, like, this is a hard business to be in with your partner. I mean, it's great.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's beautiful. I mean, it's when it works, right? But, it's you have to develop that side. And really understand, right? At the end of the day, it's like, okay, after 10 p.m., after 8 p.m., like, this is our time to be in a relationship. We have to completely remove the work. Like, we can't just, even though we can always talk about work all day long if we wanted to.
Right.
Some days we do, but we're trying to get better at cutting it off at a certain point of the night, certain time of the day, and just focusing on our relationship, and just putting the work as a, for a break, right? Just be like, okay, between 10 p.m. until the time we wake up, this is just us, and that was really, really important. That was huge for us, I think, was to develop that, right? So
Yeah, and I can imagine that it's probably important too to like find something that you both are super into individually and like give each other time to like go, hey Chris, go do that thing that I don't really am not super into, like
yeah.
while I do my thing that you're not into, just that you have some time that's not together.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
exactly.
right. I mean, that's exactly what we do. Savannah streams and plays video games, and
Okay.
that's her. That you're into that,
Yeah,
and
that's my relaxation.
I'm I'm a little bit of a crackhead. I have a hard time shutting off my brain with work. I love work. I love what I do. And you do too, Savannah.
Yeah.
But I'm still trying to find more hobbies that I can. But I kind of indulge. But I'm a big fan. I'm a big avid movie and TV show watcher, and that
Oh yeah.
actually inspires a lot of my work in lighting and stuff like that. I love to dive into TV series when I do have the time to do it, and that's kind of what I'm into when she's doing that, right?
Hmm.
So, or just playing around with Photoshop. That's actually honestly what I've been doing recently. Is I was so not good at it. I didn't know anything about it, and then when Savannah had her break, I would just go into my office at home and work on Photoshop stuff and try to get better at that craft. So.
That's cool. Yeah, I don't know if you watch Severance on Apple TV, but
Our favorite
Yes.
show, it fully literally like I think probably top
Yes.
three, right, for us. Amazing.
the intro sequence for season 2, I was just like, oh, this is amazing. It's just so awesomely done. Like the way that I mean, I love intros to TV shows when it gives you like Easter eggs about what the whole season is going to be about, but
Yeah.
without giving it away. And that particular intro scene is just genius.
Yeah.
Do you know the background story with that intro scene with the artist?
I have no idea.
So I follow him on Instagram, but I've been following him way before Severance. He's a more of a actually I wouldn't say he's super famous, but he's up there.
He's
He was
become famous
he
now.
become famous now. I don't know how he was pretty up there when before the show, but I read this whole article about Ben Stiller, who directed Severance. He found this guy through Instagram, and it was one of the first times ever that a director found somebody just through Instagram. I don't know how much this is true, but this is what Ben Stiller was talking about in the article that I was reading. And it was actually really cool to see that, like, this guy was just really well known on Instagram, and I don't think he was well known in any other outlets. And Ben Stiller found him through Instagram and I think he won a Webby. I think he won an award for the intro.
It's super cool.
Yeah, it's really inspiring, man. It's a really inspiring that he was able to, find him through a social media outlet and get hired for something so
This big.
yeah, so big like that. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I had one more question I wanted to ask you guys about, because you kind of had mentioned earlier in the podcast that you've been hiring more people to kind of help out in terms of running the business and actually executing the shoots. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about kind of how your roles in the creative process have evolved, especially with the growth of the media agency. Like, how have you transitioned from doing less and less of the hands-on and more in terms of a director or creative leadership role?
like I said, our whole career, our whole career with us together, and before I met Savannah as well, I've always been, the photographer, videographer, and then Savannah started shooting. So actually, before I dive into that, basically how it works is if we take on a project, Savannah usually is our camera operator for, video. And I do all the still photography. That's usually how we balance it. But it really came down to we got so busy that, how it developed is we got so busy that we had to hire other people to kind of, we can't be everywhere at once, right?
Yeah.
So, but sometimes the projects were so big, we need multiple camera people. We needed, we just needed so for the hotels, for example, because I'm trying to think of a good, example for a project, but so we worked for this hotel in Greece, and it was a 4-day project, and we needed drone operators, we needed a bunch of videographers, and I had to eventually understand that I can't just do everything, right? I mean, I'll
Right.
use my mind. We both can't just do everything.
Right.
So ultimately we wanted to we knew we were good at directing. We knew we were good at putting the pieces together. But I also wanted to bring in different creative outlets into the projects as well, and kind of just like I said, develop a team. And I really didn't know where it was going to turn into, and then one thing led to another, and we created a entire media agency out of it. So
Mhm.
we don't have anybody on staff right now, but we do. Most of our people are outsourced. We're actually talking about putting some people on our staff soon that can actually be on a payroll and the whole nine. But yeah, I mean, right now, a lot of the projects that we're doing, we're just directing. So music videos, even some of the photography campaigns that we're doing we're just the ones. Either we're showing up, sometimes we're not even going, we're just remotely directing if we're
Yeah.
on another project. But we're putting, like I said, the pitch decks together for the project. We're in touch with the client the entire time. The color palettes, I'll even do the editing myself, depending on what the project is.
Sometimes marketing, like plan for marketing, which gets incorporated into the media, and graphics work if they need special effects for video, or even just like simple like small gifs or something that they can post on their socials, things like that. Website development, that's also something that we've been diving into, which also incorporates our media, but also media that we outsource from other people as well. So it's all starting to like come together into one, and we're seeing places where we are, I wouldn't necessarily say lacking, but we're kind of slowing down on because we just don't have time for. So that's why we're able to fortunately hire other people as well to help collaborate on these projects, but even just make the whole concept stronger as well.
Yeah, we wanted to. I mean, it was getting to a point where it's like, okay, well, the hotel stuff is taking over, the travel stuff is getting really busy, the editorial stuff is getting really busy. What do we sacrifice? Because ultimately, I just can't do it both. But it was like, why do we have to sacrifice it? Why can't we just do everything and build a team out of it? And that's what Sin City Creative Group is like I said, it's a one-stop shop. So, for example, a hotel or an artist, or now we're working with a lot of drink companies and just commercial companies in general. They'll come into us and they're like, okay, well, we want you to redesign all our cans. We want you, to do the photography and the videography for our TV commercials and our online promotions. And, so we want, like I said, we want to be that one-stop shop that people can just come in and they don't have to, because it's a pain for companies to outsource a million people at once. Let us do that, right? I mean, we have the connections, so they come to us, and then we have the connections to the graphic designers, the best graphic designers in the world, the best photography, photographers, best videographers. I mean, we have
Mhm.
everybody that we have connections that we built over the last 15 years.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost impossible to scale if you are just doing it all yourself.
Right.
Right. Yeah, and then honestly, I always felt like, in my personal opinion, certain campaigns and projects, I felt like, because of the size and the scope of work and all the paperwork and the marketing, details of it and all that, photography and the media, the physical media was only a percentage of that, right? And there was so much more to do. So it was just like I had to let go of that control, because I always wanted to be like, I got to do it all. I know how I want it. I know what I want done. And
Mhm.
Savannah was the first, was really the one to be like, you got to let go. Like, we can't do all the photography. We can't do all the
Yeah.
videography. I do have some clients that to this day, like, they only will work with me. I have such a niche photography though. Like, some of my more of that, the wand photo with the, the one that we went over with the blue light hitting her. Stuff like that is hard to teach other photographers. So that's where I'm at right now, is I'm trying to find people that can do that, that type of aesthetic. But a lot of the commercial work, we can find really good people for that. So
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think it can be scary for people who are looking to expand in the way that you're doing it, because like you don't want to give away all of your secrets and like have someone learn all this stuff from you, and then like 5 years from now they leave and become competition. But at the same time, it's somewhat fulfilling to like lift other people up and like help them along in their journey too. So it's a tough one.
It's yeah, honestly, I always said, I mean, this game, this industry, I really as far as what we do, I really think 90% of it is in-person connection, like having I mean, if you look at some of the biggest companies and musicians in the world, like their photographers, their people, they just built relationships with. They're probably not the best photographer in the world. They're not, but it's really it's in person. It's just the connection. If you get what they want, even if you're not as good as that guy, you know, you're gonna develop a connection with that person. I was never afraid of somebody like stealing. I did it. That did cross my mind, like somebody actually, like, you know, just having competition and kind of giving away certain secrets and stuff. But I almost now I'm at a point in my career where I want to give back. I want to teach people what I do. I feel like it won't hurt me at this point. I don't know if it would have ever hurt me. Maybe when I was first starting. But I have the clientele now, and you know, there are tons of people that are better than me, but I feel like my clients, they go to me, they trust me, they go to me for a reason much more than the quality of the photography. They go to me for the
Right.
connection, like the conversations. I mean, like what we're having, right? I mean, that's everything.
Mhm.
Right. And they know you're going to deliver on the product and it's going to be a good experience and it's going to be professional and like all these things that are intangible that you can't really put a price tag on, really.
Right, right. Literally, it's priceless for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So, last question. Who do you guys recommend for the podcast? Who are a couple of people that our listeners should learn more about?
So Jack Studios, Jack Studios is out of New Haven, Connecticut. I think actually they might be technically out of Greenwich, Connecticut. I know that's where their studio is.
Yes.
So Jacqueline, we met her at the WPPI events in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
They the wedding portrait professional.
Gorgeous wedding portraits, and same thing. She puts a very creative spin on a lot of her portraiture as well, and hers tells more of a story. And she was talking about how it's so important to connect with your client first and foremost, because then it builds the relationships and it builds like an even better understanding. They trust you better. Like, she's just a very inspirational person overall.
She was a speaker at WPPI, and we
Mhm.
learned a lot from her. And we actually, we developed a friendship because we were from Connecticut, right? That's how we kind of connected. And you just got to see her work. She has won hundreds of awards for
Stunning.
photography.
Yeah.
Absolutely, her and her husband, they own the company together. They're absolutely incredible.
Awesome.
And then the next guy is Ripstick. Ripstick Boogie is his Instagram handle. He is at the time when we first connected on Instagram, he was just up and coming travel photography and just travel marketing, promoter, I guess I would say. Not promoter, but he would go to these hotels and create reels and like I said, also professional photography, but to promote travel to these luxury hotels. And
But he's been there since the start of our journey, and
yeah,
we've been there since the start of his journey, and love to see him grow as he has, and he's become an amazing photographer.
he's incredible. Yeah,
Just in the past couple of years, even.
it's cool to see somebody grow like that, right?
Mhm.
From starting with, like, I think he had like 50 followers and he has gained so many, not even just the followers point, but just the quality of work and what he's
Mhm.
delivering for these hotels. Just really amazing. He's on the road, which I think he lives on the road, but he's inspiring to us. So
Awesome. Well, Savannah and Chris, this has been a lot of fun, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us about your cool photography projects.
thank you
Thank
so much for
you.
having us on. This has been really fun. We don't get a chance to sit down too much and talk about the
Yeah.
work that we do. So we really appreciate you having us come up.
For sure. Well, thanks for joining me for another great episode. A huge thank you to our latest Patreon supporters, Thomas Lucia, Subhashish Duda, and Pete Schmotzer. Your support truly helps to keep this show going. If you've been enjoying the podcast, I'd love for you to join them over on Patreon. There are over 250 bonus episodes waiting for you, plus early releases and other perks depending on your tier. The show runs on the value for value model, meaning if you get something out of these conversations, I ask you to put something back in to help keep it sustainable. You can sign up today at patreon.com/fstop and listen. It only takes a minute and every bit of support makes a real difference. If you can't financially support the show, I always appreciate 5-star reviews on Apple or Spotify. Thanks for stopping in, collaborating with us, and listening. See you next week.